I'm pleased to have the opportunity to join with Gordon after today's meeting of EU trade ministers. It's the second meeting in which I've participated like others, and albeit virtually. And I'd like to thank Gordon and the Croatian presidency for all of their hard work in very challenging times, and to thank them very much for the work that they've done, because it wasn't too easy to communicate with everybody. We discussed two very topical and important issues, as Gordon has just explained. And having referred briefly to the forthcoming vacancy for the position of Director General of the WTO, I set out some arguments for putting in place a new sequence and a new focus for our WTO reform policy. The EU's long-term policy objective remains a root and branch reform of the WTO. And there are, in my view, a number of immediate actions which we could take, which would have an effect on improving transparency in the way the WTO operates, delivering on plurilateral initiatives on pharmaceutical products and medical devices, bringing sustainability to the forefront of the WTO's agenda, and supporting the ongoing rule-making negotiations. So I set out the objectives of the Trade and Health Initiative, which includes levelling the international playing field on tariffs in a major industrial sector, creating the new export opportunities for EU healthcare products, particularly in relation to manufacturing, and supporting the multilateralism by anchoring the agreement that we're proposing to take within the World Trade Organization framework. So it is important to appreciate that the concept paper that we have presented from the Commission is just a means by which we will reach out to other partners. It's not a formal proposal, and if we get to that stage, we will have to come back to the Member States, of course. I now look forward to a first discussion with potential plurilateral partners at next week's meeting of the Ottawa Group. A number of ministers raised concerns about the European steel industry, and I took the opportunity to assure them that we should aim at ensuring the highest level of protection against trade diversion to the EU steel industry. In terms of trade defence, there are currently 26 steel-related measures in place, and we have seen an 80% reduction in steel imports to the European Union due to these measures that we have taken. This includes a reduction in steel imports from China from 4 million tonnes to 80,000 tonnes in the last year. We then had a second discussion on the trade implications of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I recall the Commission's updated economic assessment on trade, as well as details of the Commission's MFF and recovery package proposal. I set out some background to the trade policy review, in respect of which the Commission is set to launch the public consultation next week. I'm pleased too to welcome the Dutch and French non-paper on trade, social economic effects and sustainable development, and this is an important and useful contribution to our reflections on the post-COVID-19 recovery. Finally, I updated ministers on the latest state of play of the United States-EU trade relationships, including with regard to our exploration of a potential trade facilitating package and our efforts to reach a fair and balanced solution on civil aircraft disputes. So this is the context of which we had the meeting today, and I'm happy now to take some of your questions.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Now we'll move to Q&A session. I see many blue hands raised. Please, colleagues, before raising question, identify yourself and the media outlets you affiliated with. We'll start with Jim Bernstein, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, thank you. A question for the Commissioner and a question for the Presidency, if I may. For the Commissioner, there have been rumours in the past couple of weeks that you yourself might be interested in succeeding Mr. Azevedo as Director General of the World Trade Organization. Are you a candidate? And if so, how much support have you received so far from the Member States? And for the Presidency, could I ask, did the meeting today find at least a consensus on the idea of presenting a European candidate for the post, so that there should be a European candidate and that there should be a single European candidate? Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Jim, certainly I'm exploring the option of being a candidate for the Director General of the WTO. I think that there is an important amount of work to be done to reform the organization, to make it more effective and efficient, but also to deal with many of the important trade issues that are bedeviling the international community now arising from COVID-19. The negotiating function and the large agenda of work that requires to be done is well known to you and well known to everybody. And there is certainly the potential for a European candidate to be put forward. I was heartened today by the fact that the majority of member states spoke in favour of a single European Union candidate, but of course this is work in progress, as the Presidency and as Gordon will tell you, and that there will be further deliberations on this in the coming weeks. But I remain in the exploratory stage of my own candidature at the moment to see how member states will subsequently respond when it comes to making a decision in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much for this question. As I mentioned before, and for us it's very, very important to have a really functional World Trade Organization and rule-based organization, and of course, who will be chair, who will be Director General, the profile, their political figure, and of course supporter of multilateralism. I think so. It's very, very important to find this candidate with this also experienced and who is really able and to be broker compromises, to broker compromises, and then of course to get first of all the WTO on track. And of course that's so we have been discussing, and we will discuss of course further on the possibility, of course, of having an EU candidate, having in mind that this profile is very, very important for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Now we'll move to Joanna Sopinska. Please, Joanna, you have the floor. Can we hear you? Okay.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, both.
Okay, great. So I have two questions. One is about the Boeing Airbus case, which you mentioned, Commissioner, about the arbitration award. Is it still expected this month? And if so, are the EU going to move towards forward with the retaliation against the US, sorry? And the second question is on the white paper on foreign subsidies, which is expected next week. Will it be linked in any way with the screening mechanism, which has been agreed some time ago and is gonna enter into force in October this year? Thank you.
Well, first of all, can I say, Joanna, that the Boeing Airbus dispute has been the subject of efforts by the European Union for the last 9 months to try and broker a negotiated outcome to this dispute. As you know, it has gone on for 15 years in the WTO. And we have been the subject of tariffs imposed by the United States arising from the Airbus panel decision of the WTO since last November. So we are waiting to see the outcome of the Boeing panel. The United States are waiting as well, it seems. And we will know this in early July. And let's wait and see the outcome first of all, because I cannot anticipate what this outcome will be. And therefore I can't answer the second part of your question, was whether we should have retaliation. It depends on the outcome. But certainly in the absence of a negotiated settlement, there will be strong pressure by member states to ensure that that the impact of this award will be implemented in respect of the United States in due course. But I don't want to anticipate the outcome, which will be in early July. The foreign subsidies paper will be published shortly. I've been working closely with Vice President Vestager in relation to this, and it will include, of course, the references that we have in our trade defence toolbox and our foreign direct investment screening. And the screening mechanism is being implemented by the member states in anticipation of its full implementation by the 1st of October. But this is largely a data gathering and monitoring tool presently. This is what the member states agreed early last year. But I think that more and more member states now realize the importance of this particular measure in order to assess very carefully the vulnerabilities of our business sector in the context of COVID-19, and to ensure that we have the right information in every member state about where there is vulnerabilities, particularly in relation to takeovers and monopolies could develop, mergers and takeovers certainly are going to be scrutinized very carefully in the context of the critical infrastructure and critical technologies areas of the European Union. So we'll have to wait and see what the Foreign Subsidies paper will say next week. But I can confirm that the FDI screening will form one aspect of, and a very important aspect of, our developing toolbox of measures for trade defence and for monitoring what is happening in the mergers and monopolies and investments in terms of critical technologies and critical infrastructure.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next question comes from Giorgio Leali. Giorgio, please.
Good morning. I'm Giorgio Leali from Politico Europe. I have a question for Commissioner Hogan about the possibility to be a candidate for the WTO position of Director General. And we would like to know if your candidature is backed by the United States. Did you discuss this with Mr. Lighthizer, or as you said, it's still in an explorative stage? Thank you very much.
Well, I can confirm that we had a conversation about this some time ago. Ambassador Lighthizer is very much of the view that a developed country should assume the responsibility of the Director General of the WTO. But of course, you know, he or the United States cannot make any decision about who they will support until such time as they see the list of candidates that will be offering around the closing time of the 8th of July. So I think that the United States certainly would not have come to any decision at this stage about who to support until we know the list of candidates, as I've said. But we look forward to seeing who is actually going to be nominated, and we look forward to the further discussions in the European Union about a candidate that will be put forward for the Director General in due course.
Thank you. Now we move, as I see, to the last question, and it comes from Philip Blenkinsop. Philip, please, you have the floor. We can't hear you. Click on your microphone.
The microphone should be on. Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay, all right. Yes, thank you for taking the question. Back to the issue of the Director General position in the WTO. I think the Croatian minister, you said you were going to discuss further the issue of having an EU or a single EU candidate. There's obviously only a month to go. I think you implied that this was the last trade ministers meeting. So I just wondered perhaps you could kind of talk about how, you know, I'm not entirely clear whether there is support for the idea of having a single candidate and how you would go about doing it within the next, whatever it is, 30 odd days. And maybe, Commissioner, perhaps you said you were exploring the option. Again, there's only 30 days to go, but maybe you could just tell us what the factor or factors are in favor of bidding or not.
Thank you. The question goes to Philip. Philip, can you hear us?
Yes.
Philip, you raised the question to both of them, or just to the Commissioner? Philip.
Yep.
The question was raised to.
Well, the first question was raised to the Croatian minister regarding the process of narrowing it down to one candidate, and obviously the issue about factors that Mr. Hogan is considering, obviously that's directed towards him.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Minister, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. And yes, indeed, it was our last FAC meeting through the video conference. But actually the nomination, since the nominations period for this position started even yesterday, and we close on 8th of July 2020. We believe that it is the right time also for us to reflect what would be in the interest of the European Union, of course, in this process and in this context. And this is the time when Croatia is going to hand over its presidency to Germany. And of course, we will together coordinate this process.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Just to add to that, of course, this was an initial discussion today by the presidency and by the trade ministers about a vacancy that has arisen some few weeks ago. As I said earlier, a majority of the member states expressed the view that we should have a single EU candidate to be put forward for the post of Director General. A number of member states reserved their position at this stage, but the discussion is around how the presidency could move forward in terms of the criteria of the candidate, in terms of the type of candidate that can be presented. Is there such a candidate available in the European Union that can rally the support of all member states to ensure that we have credibility in the candidate and credibility to try and win this position? So, you know, initial views have been expressed today, and we'll see how this develops over the next couple of weeks. As Gordon and the presidency has said, we have until the 8th of July, and it'll be either under the Croatian presidency or the German presidency that there will be a further discussion. And I'm indicating very clearly that I'm exploring the options of doing this. Of course, the duration of the process overall in electing the WTO Director General is an important consideration. Will it be, you know, we are waiting to see from the WTO if the process is going to be short or long, and this has to be made clear in the coming days. And then I have to, of course, wait for the consultation process that the Croatian presidency and the German presidency are involved in now, in terms of the criteria and in terms of the decision to field a European Union candidate for this position. So these are all, this is all work in progress in the coming weeks, but we have plenty of time. 30 days is a long time in politics.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Since I don't see any blue hands raised, I will conclude this press conference by thanking the Commissioner and the Minister for their time and attendance, and to you, colleagues, till the next time. Thank you very much indeed.
Goodbye. Have a nice day. Bruno, Phil.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.
Keep in touch.